Rolling.
I have a keep on doing that. All right.
I'm always ready.
Welcome to You Know Me, a podcast for Brunswick and the Golden Isles. I'm Buda.
I'm the Beard. How's it going?
It's going good. It's good. We're doing well.
I know it's we're slowing down a little bit, but we're getting, we're doing about one podcast a month, but we do have the Brunswick Eats. That
And, it was fun doing like one podcast a week, but I got to be honest with you, I was stressing
it's always stressful.
trying to get something scheduled every single week
Yeah.
on top of work and everything else. So I think once a month is perfect.
Yeah. Now all we have to worry about is having an empty stomach when we go out to eat.
I know, huh? So you, Beard, work at Fletsy.
I do.
That's a big kind of economic thing here. And
Yeah. A lot of people don't believe it. They see me and they're like, "Where do you work?"
I know. But Fletsy does a lot. I mean, they have, you're with the Department of Agriculture. They've the Marshal Service, the
90 plus different agencies.
the real NCIS, IRS, TSA, which is a joke, but the ATF. So a lot of people don't know what that is. And being a federal agent, Hugh here is a retired federal agent. You were correct? Was it an agent?
Mm-hmm.
A butt technician.
Yep.
Hugh, introduce yourself to and tell me what your background was and what you did for our federal government.
So my name is Hugh Breslin, and I was started with government service actually at the White House, back in the really early 80s, and worked 6 months for the Carterites and then 6 months with the Reaganites. And I was putting myself through law school at the time, and I finally just said, this just isn't my cup of tea. So I dropped everything. I ran away. I joined the circus, the fire department, and then which paid okay, but really I was most interested in law enforcement, and so I joined the U.S. Capitol Police right there in D.C. Worked my way up to the bomb squad. And most people don't realize that they hear the term bomb tech, but a bomb tech is kind of a jack of all trades. My specialty, besides explosives and the rendering safe of explosives, was also in the management of asymmetrical terrorist weapons, as in radiological, biological, and chemical. And so really that was my specialty, besides, again, just being, just a bomb tech. We were also criminal investigators, because once the bomb goes off, your job is to, put it all back together again and then find out where all the pieces originated from, so you can track down who it was that bought them, that would lead you to, again, the perp, so that you could solve the case. So anyway, I did that. Very rewarding. And then finally I got a phone call from Fletsy that said, hey, you can come down here and teach in the morning and blow things back then. And so I sat down with my future wife and said, well, what do you think? And she said, sure, why not? The Yankee dollar goes far here in coastal Georgia.
Plus, it's Monday through Friday.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, and that's as much as I loved Washington, D.C., and being on the bomb squad was very, very rewarding. It was about as close to being a Superman as you can get. They just wanted you to show up, and the vast majority of our calls were just bogus. People were just leaving baby strollers or, backpacks next to Thomas Jefferson, because they were just too tired of lugging the damn things around. So most of our calls were just that. I mean, you still took the precautions, but it's not to say that we didn't. We did have our incidents, but for the most part, it was just a lot of fun. you would be 24/7 for a week at a time. And you can go home. You had the chase car, and then the dispatcher would give you a ring a ding ding and say, okay, they found something over here, over there, and then you would just respond. And at the time, really there were only 3 bomb squads in the city. One of them covered the White House, which is the White House military office, and then there was us, and we were the only 24/7. So we pretty much had the run of the place, and we would respond to wherever that they really needed. That was part of the deal when you became a bomb tech, or when you formed a bomb squad, is that you were obligated to respond to whoever needed you, even if it was. And I responded up to Baltimore once. To another city, because they were just a little shorthanded and they just needed somebody. And it was fun driving lights and sirens in the middle of a lot of traffic going from one city to the other. So it was very rewarding. It was just a lot of good camaraderie. I didn't think much about, because I was a bachelor at the time, and I really didn't think about what the ramifications were. In bomb school, they would always reiterate, I said, listen, if you're close enough to the device and if it goes off, it'll be like somebody flipping a light switch, So this from an instructor, then we had like 3 fingers on one hand. What about you? So, but it was good stuff.
So did you have the whole suit and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. One of the requirements for when you put together a bomb squad is that, number one, you have to have the suit. And ours was the Medeng. I believe we had the number 8, which was a good suit, heavy, alrighty. Although the joke was that, if the bomb goes off, all the suit was going to do was make you look good and, at your services. So that you had to have the suit, you had to have the ability to go up to a package, X-ray it to make sure that it was a viable threat. And again, I would go up, suit and all, and I would put my cassette from my X-ray machine on one side, and then the actual generator, the actual X-ray generator on the other side, and then I would take a picture. Alrighty, I would back away from the X-ray machine first, and then we would take a picture, and I would come up. I would take the cassette. I would then go back to the the vehicle or wherever we had set up our little command post, and then we would process the film, and then we would say, okay, it's BS, or it's like, not good. And like I said, every once in a while we would find some really good, interesting stuff. But for the most part, it was, it was just a bunch of books or, baby bottles or something, or diapers.
Did you have to go through the police academy then bomb school, or is it?
Yes. Yeah. It was, for the, police bomb squads. Yeah. Then you needed to, get that out of the way. They really didn't want people not to have, that background. You really needed to be somewhat street savvy. So, and plus that, the amount of money that they invest in a bomb technician, because you're looking at going away to school. Matter of fact, I would say about a third of my time when I was with the squad, we were always going back to school. And because it was just one of those, jobs that just required you to keep up to speed and with most especially the technology.
Yeah.
An example, my first school was the Hazardous Devices School at the FBI U.S. Army. An EOD school in Redstone, Huntsville, Alabama. And that was about 6 weeks long. and great school. All of it was hands-on training. You learned how to, you know, render safe any kind of device. You also learned how to handle explosives and how to blow things up. And so it was a good school. And then you would come home, you would decompress for about a week, and then they would send you, in my case, to the FBI Academy, where they put me through my criminal investigation training, which is known as the post-blast criminal investigation school. And so I did that. Then you come back home, and then you would decompress for about a week, and then you turned around, and then they would send you to, in my case, Fort McClellan, down in Anniston, Alabama, for your chemical weapons training, and then later on biological, and then out to the Nevada test site for your radiological, and you know. By that time, you're supposed to be up to speed.
That's a lot to know.
It is. It is. And it was just a wonderful education. And I still. And the nice thing about FLETC is that once I got picked up by FLETC, they gave me carte blanche to really do my own research. And so, one of the nice things about that, and Mike will tell you, is that you have in between actual giving lectures, you do spend a lot of time just, keeping your knowledge.
You have to.
Of the whole business.
You have to, yeah.
It's always emerging threats.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. And so you're always trying to think outside the box and be one step ahead of the bad guy. Some of it, and part of my research was to do just that, was to think of ways that they hadn't quite thought of yet. And even then, sometimes they would surprise you, be it the Al-Qaeda or just, some kid that's just putzing around. It's like the crickets. The crickets were these little CO2 canisters. And what in Columbine, what Klebold and Harris did was that they punched the top of it. They bled out the gas, the nitrogen gas, and then they filled it up with firecracker powder. Harris, when he was managing the little pizzeria, refused to get paid in cash. He told his boss, "I want to get paid in firecracker powder." That's what he did. So all of their stuff was just that. And then they would fill up these little CO2 canisters with just that. And then they would take hobby fuse, and then you buy them from, Toys R Us. And then you just, they had strike anywhere match heads. They had super glued, basically sandpaper to their BDUs, and they had the strike anywhere match heads that they had super glued to the head of the time fuse, and they went around and and threw the darn thing, so they were supposed to go off like grenades, which they didn't because they used the wrong kind of glue, so they ran around on the floor like little Roman candles, and that's.
Well, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And then, but it was all the rave. We had a kid down not too far from here, just on the other side of the Georgia, Florida line that made a habit of making those, and except he did a much better job. So, but
it's a high tension. I mean, you go in, it's already at a high tension. You don't know if this is bogus or real. So it's already at a high level, and probably more than anything else. What is it like when that box or that backpack, when it comes back, there's actually something real in there? How does that go from, because it's already here, how much higher does it go when it's actually something that's live?
yeah, it's the one that sometimes you're just amazed at. And the one that comes to mind, and matter of fact, I almost brought an exemplar of the darn thing. And we had something that was intercepted down in the basement of one of the U.S. Senate office buildings on the Hill. And it was a mail sorter. And he was, for Senator so-and-so, and here's a letter for Senator so-and-so. And he picks this one up, and he's just like not very comfortable with it. It's a little bulging, and it's so they called the squad. They came down. They X-rayed it. They took a photo of it, and they're looking at this thing and they go, "What the hell is this?" So, what this guy did, he said he bought himself at the commissary one of those musical Christmas cards. You open it up and it sings a little jingle to you. He got himself, because he was assigned down to the metal shop, and he got himself one of those old telescopic car antennas, the ones that are hollowed out, and he broke off both ends. Took metal shavings and he mixed it with basically red phosphorus and potassium nitrate, saltpeter, and put it all together. Took the two wires that led to the actual little thing that made the sound when you opened up the letter, and he took it and he connected it to one end of this little miniature pipe bomb. And the whole idea was that when the target opened it, this thing would just blow up in his face. Jesus. I wouldn't. His target was a household name. I don't want to bring anybody's name into this, but anyway, we're not sure whether or not it would have killed the senator. It certainly would have probably blinded him in a worst case scenario. But this guy, bought all the components and mailed it from his prison cell from the federal penitentiary out in Leavenworth. So when you get something like that, you're just amazed. You're just, what? But we've had, incidents where the one that I specifically worked on was something that came through the mail. It was a box. And same thing, we x-rayed it and said, what the heck? And the way it was is that, and the guy wrote on to say, keep upright. And they did. They kept, it was out of Indianapolis. Still an open case. And this is a long time ago. But the way it was triggered was that the person would open it up, they would lift it up, and it would then cause this bucket to then spill its contents. The bucket contained potassium perchlorate from the back of shotgun shells. And the bottom that it would have come in contact with, that particular chemical, was red phosphorus from, again, the sides of matches. Yeah, match heads, or, the strike side of the matchbox. And you put those two things together and you just get a boom. So again, it was targeting one of the leadership on the House side in that particular case. So,
well, these people, to me, when I think of it, because I'm looking at it because through Hollywood, you have to be really, really smart to build these things. This is an intellectual person's crime type of deal. You have to understand chemistry, electrical engineering, physics. Or is it any knucklehead can actually do it? Because I know a couple of knuckleheads, I'll get into it, that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you have to appreciate, the average age of the explosives bomb maker, and it has been actually consistently now for almost like 5 decades, the average age of the bomber in America is 13 years old.
Wow.
These are kids that are just
curious.
I always ask in a class when I was still teaching at FLESI, how many of you ever built a bomb when you were a kid? And you always get everybody kind of looking around, and then a couple of hands will go up. And I made one when I was a kid.
also goes back to because I watched a thing about Radio Shack and how whatever went out of business, but they were saying how like you were able to go to Radio Shack and buy like the kit to make. And so a lot of the engineers that from Apple, that was like all started with just a little
Yeah.
kit from.
It's well, as the ATF likes to call Radio Shack bombs on Russ. And you're right, you have everything that you need. With that said, you can make your bomb as complicated as you want, keeping in mind that the more complicated the bomb, the greater the chance that you're going to hurt yourself. 1 out of every 10 people that will make a bomb, most especially kids, will either blow themselves up or they'll maim themselves.
I mean, I remember I used to throw batteries in a campfire just to see what would happen when you throw batteries. And
Yeah.
you never did that. You never just.
No, I mean we go downtown because fireworks were illegal. We go. There's a place called the Combat Zone in downtown Boston. It's cleaned up now, but we would buy fireworks out of someone's trunk, and you know we get the M80s and quarter sticks, and we thought it was funny because we drop them down into the manhole because the sound of the explosion would be amplified because of it's underground. But we never thought about building anything that would go boom. I wouldn't even know where to start. Honestly, I wouldn't. But going to like kids and hurting themselves. I had 2 classmates. They were 16 years old. I don't know why they wanted to build a pipe bomb, but they got the pipe and they're using the match heads. They're breaking off the match heads and just packing them all in there. Of course, when you're 16 years old, you're stupid. I don't think they thought it all the way through. Well, they didn't think it all the way through. They didn't have any way to close that at open end. So one of them thought it'd be a really good idea is to use an axe, hit it, and like, oh, I'll hold it. So he hits it, he holds it, thing goes boom because it's packed with match heads.
Yeah.
And he lost every single finger on his hand except for his thumb.
Yeah. 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 We had an incident up in Bethesda, Maryland, Glen Echo, actually just on the other side of the DC line. And you had 4 kids, and they went to Bethesda High School, and they were putting together their first pipe bomb. And they weren't using powders. They were using this incredible concoction. I suspect that it was probably triacetone triperoxide because it was. But what happened was that they were going to trigger it by, again, the time fuse. Well, they had assembled it. The last thing that they did was that they took the time fuse and they tried to insert it into the little hole, except the hole wasn't wide enough. So one of the other kids said, "Hey, grab that drill over there." Oh, God. So when Mickey Bergman got on the scene, he just said it was just 2 of the kids were still on the garage ground. They didn't last but maybe half an hour before they rolled them into suburban emergency. And the other 2 kids, they just left on the scene. It was just, dumb. And yet, like I said, if you keep that kind of thing up, it's inevitable that you're going to get hurt. We saw a crime scene. Nice thing about when I was over at Fletcher, we would get all these crime scene photos from ATF and the FBI. And we had one that said, okay, we're still trying to figure out what's going on. And what triggered this one, and it was a white supremacist, a biker, and living at home. He was like 26 years old, and he's living at home. And his little workshop is in his, down in the basement. And we're looking at these photos. And then all of a sudden, again, they're trying to figure out what it was. Was it a grain of a grain of black powder or smokeless powder that just got into the actual threading when he was screwing the cap on, which is, another common reason, and probably very similar to what happened to your friend, and that then caused the device to go off. Um, and but the more I looked at the photo, and I'm looking down at this one little area that is next to the body, and there's a cigarette, and which had just burnt down almost right to the filter. And I said he was smoking while he was putting this thing together, and I suspect that's what happened.
Yeah.
So
Helpful tip, people. Do not smoke cigarettes while you're assembling your bomb. This just throwing that out there. Safety 101.
now some of the bombers, my first experience was a group. They went by different names: Armed Resistance Unit, the May 19th Organization, all female terrorist group. They were Lenin, Stalinists, Maoists, and just kind of a mean bunch. It was Marilyn Buck, Linda Sue Evans, oh God, who else? Laura Whitehorn, and there was one of the other gals too. And they had done a series of bombings. They had been at it since 1969, and this was November 7th of 1983.
Wow.
And so they have been doing lots of different bombings throughout the years, and had yet to be caught. And they had assembled a device and snuck it into the U.S. Capitol building. And the way they did that was that they had taken an old baby stroller, not the kind that you could fold up, but the ones that, you just couldn't. And they took the tubing apart and they filled it up. What they did is they had all the wiring. When you're looking at devices, and one of the things when we train our young charges over at FLESI to recognize an IED, we're telling them, okay, what you're looking for is power, electricity, a battery. And then you have your initiator, your blasting cap, if not your time fuse, if not a squib, an electric time fuse. You have your explosive, and then you have your switch. And that's the basics of it, and it can be as complicated or as easy as you want it to be. But what they did is they had all of their components. They stuffed them into the tubing, and took we think about 8 to 10 sticks of like a unigel, like an explosive slurry that they use in mining operations. We thought at first it was 8 to 10 sticks of heaving dynamite, very high nitroglycerin base, but turns out that it was just something that they had ripped off from something up in Pennsylvania. And they hid the explosives, under a pail of dirty diapers. They rented a baby for the day. The two gals, we think it was, we're not sure if it was Whitehorn or Linda Sue Evans, but we think it was probably that, or Susan Rosenberg, who was the other bad person. And they went, and they did the reason they had been up there a couple of times, casing out the security setup on the hill. They found that there was one place that they knew they could get in readily without too much trouble, which was the handicapped entrance to the north end of the building. And it was one thing, it was just this old guard, God bless him, he was just, and he'd been there for like ever, and he was just like, oh, come on in, ladies, and oh, yeah, and then he did a little cursory check. And they were like, oh, thank you, officer. And they went in. They went right to the ladies' room. They assembled the device, put it in a little bag, went up to the second floor just outside the United States Senate chamber, and then placed it behind a love seat. And they did that about 4:30 in the afternoon. The bomb was supposed to go off at 11 o'clock, a couple of minutes before 11 o'clock. All the information that had been published by the Star and the Washington Post said that the Senate was going to be in session late that night because Howard Baker, who was the majority leader, insisted that they put their feet to the fire in order to pass these bills. We also had just gone into Grenada, which was, again, why the terrorist group did what they did. But that night, Howard Baker, he partied the day before watching the Redskins play against Cleveland over at RFK Stadium, and was just too pooped to put in a long night. So at about 7:30, the gavel hit the podium. They adjourned. So when the bomb went off, there wasn't anybody around.
So
Had they been in session like they were supposed to, we figure in a worst case scenario, it would have wiped out. They were targeting the Republican side of the U.S. Senate, so this would probably be a quarter of the U.S. Senate. A whole lot of police officers, a whole lot of agents, protective services, doorkeepers, lobbyists, and would have been killed. We found splinters of glass that long on the far side of the chambers on the north wall of the building. So it was, and just by the grace of God, nobody was around. The only injury was Tanya Blake, and she was a detective at the time, and she had just walked by where it was, and had just turned the corner, was walking down the grand staircase when it went off, and she slight concussion, busted eardrum, and that was the worst of it. I was standing outside the building when that thing went off, and I was actually looking up at the dome, and I'm pretty sure it was just an illusion, but the way all the windows shook when the bomb went off, it almost looked like the dome was made of jello. It just wobbled. So
What really stood out about that was the fact that they rented a baby. You rent a baby? Wow. Like a real baby.
yeah, a little baby.
Hey, money's money.
Well, yeah, they were interesting bunch. There's a term that the Germans used that said they were so divorced from reality. All right, because they had been so sheltered and had been so, I guess, running from the authorities, and were always underground, that they just didn't see, what the real world was like. And so they were just, again, cornered into this mentality where, it was us versus them, and they just didn't know any better. And
Were they all-
the end justifies the means.
Were they all eventually rounded up? I mean, were they all-
Yes, yeah. It was about, I want to say, several months after the bombing. They were at up in Baltimore. They were at one of those storage facilities, and I guess the storage owner was a little suspicious about what they were doing at 3 o'clock in the morning. So he called the police. They arrived on the scene. They were actually hauling more explosives into the vehicle that they had. They locked them up. They found blueprints of the Capitol, and there were weapons. It was a small, really, arsenal of bad things that they had in the storage locker. And then they locked them up. They didn't get everybody, but after a couple of years, they finally rounded everybody up. And so some of them went to prison for a while. I think it was Rosenberg and Whitehorn went away for many years, but they were all pardoned by President Clinton his last day in office, and released. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Sure.
All right.
So
Good to know. But I mean, so you see this stuff on TV, and sometimes it's comical. Is the red wire? Is the green wire? What wire? You know, I don't. I've done this. I have to do accounting, finance. I watch some of these shows, movies. I think Ozark, the opening scene with him, he's talking all this accounting stuff. I'm like, no, that's wrong. You don't do that. I mean, do you see some of that, or do you watch any of that and have a little bit of a that will never happen, or that doesn't happen that way?
there was
I mean, it's obvious. It's all Hollywood. They got to make it sensational. And
what was the movie about the bomb techs over in Afghanistan?
Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker. Yeah, and there was a lot of the guys I worked with were former Army EODs, and they just said it just didn't, it wasn't real. I mean, some of the things that they did were just,
Yeah.
so.
You have to sensationalize it
Yeah.
you got to Hollywoodize it because it's
Yeah. That's the same thing. Like, I'm former law enforcement and gun handling. I watch movies and I'm like, okay, yeah, your finger's on the trigger, and yeah, if you shot that gun, you would have been like, I can't hear anything. If you don't realize how loud a gun, like you can't just shoot a gun without ear protection, without you're ringing for days.
It's like X-Files when they come through the door at the very beginning, and Mueller and Scully have their weapons like right up to them. I'm thinking, no.
it's funny. I would say I don't have a law enforcement background, but I was recruited by the FBI when I was in college.
Okay.
Obviously, I did not go that route. Sometimes I think I would have. I got kicked. We had gone down to Washington, D.C. before when I was a kid. And we were in line to go into the White House for the tour. And there's the, good old-fashioned unmarked police car. Back in the day, was Ford LTDs. And then sitting in the back seat was this duffel bag. And you can see the outline of like 4 machine guns in the duffel bag. And I was like, oh, man, I want to do this. But when I talked to the guys, to me, it sounded like you had to put you're young, you're 21 years old. You don't understand that. You have to put your work in, work hard to reap your benefits. And so it's like, well, you do your training, you go somewhere, wherever they put you for like 10 years. And then you got to do a major metropolitan area for 10 years. And then you can pick a location where you want to go if there's available desks there. And I'm like, oh, man, I just want to stay in Boston. Can I do that? I'm like, no. I'm like, but, my first 10 years I was in the banking industry, and I ended up specializing in fraud and counterfeit. And I would train the tellers and train people on fraudulent checks and counterfeit money and things like that. And over that time, I was able to help the police prosecute 7 different people for fraudulent check. One counterfeiter, and most of them were just fraud, wire fraud, fraudulent checks. I mean, people do the craziest things. I mean, you see it with the bombs, but one guy came in with a stack of 20s, a stack of $1 bills, and he took a green Sharpie and put 20 on all the corners and tried to deposit it as a stack of 20s. I was like, you got to do a little effort.
We had a Fletsy kid that, I don't know if you were here then, and I think it might have been Border Patrol. That's how long ago it was. And he took $20 bills, went to a Xerox machine in the library and did Xeroxed a whole bunch of these things, cut them out, and then try to pan them off at one of the local stop and robs. But it was interesting bunch. It's almost as good as when when Border Patrol was down here and they were doing a big rush to get these kids in, and so they haven't quite gotten around to doing a lot of their background.
Yeah.
So they were putting them through this training, and they had just brought in a class. I guess they were 2 weeks into it, and then the Texas Rangers showed up at the front gate. And so, what do you guys want? It says, well, we got a warrant for so and so in this class that you got. And they said, well, what did he do? Robbing banks back in Texas.
Oh,
So yeah, you know. So, but and then they're like, but I changed a new leaf. I don't do that anymore.
yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, no problem. As long as you promise not to do it again. How's it changed? You've been in this for a long time and you've been teaching for a long time. How has the technology and the intricacy and the complexity of these devices grown since?
You know, as technology marches on, as it evolves, and certainly like any new kind of invention, someone will turn around and use it for some egregious purpose. You know, you get these little phones now where they have these little barometers and they can tell you the altitude. And there was over the Sinai desert, there was a Russian airliner, and it had just taken off from Cairo, if I'm not mistaken, and it reached a certain altitude, and then it just the bomb went off, and they suspect it was rigged up in such a way that it was, once it reached it, and it's like it's the same thing with the old and to this day an iPhone. I don't want to get too deep into it, but one of the more I guess common means of setting off a device was to take the wires that would lead to the vibrator, and then and back in the old days, they don't do it anymore, but you would actually have a little hammer that would spin and would hit the plate of a piece of metal, which would cause the vibration. Well, really, in order to close down the circuit to a device, all you have to do is take one wire, attach it to that, and then another wire to the hammer, and then just dial it in.
And as soon as it makes that contact,
Yeah.
That's all it takes is that split second.
Yeah. Now our iPhones don't do that anymore. It's you can still find a way around that, but that's pretty much old fashioned these days as far as a means of setting it off. But as soon as those type of iPhones came out online, the bad guys found a way of using it as a triggering device. So
I think that they put their energy in the brain power into something good, rather than building bombs to hurt people or destroy buildings. It'd be, might be a little bit of a better place. But it just amazes me because when you talk about bomb disposal and bomb squad, a lot of people come up with the Unabomber, and what he did, and then people who try to copycat that, and so it's I think there's a psychological I mean, it's not just, it's a psychological game because it's not just like someone robbing a bank. You see the guy, see the gun. There's a huge unknown. Where is it? Is it this box? Is it this bag? Like the Boston Marathon with those two kids.
Yep.
It's just a knapsack, and they use pressure cookers. And with so many people around, you wouldn't notice because everyone's so fixated on the race. You're not noticing that these two kids are just putting these backpacks down and walking away. And it just amazes me.
one of the things, a good point and we should never forget that depending on how dicey things get in our society, really kind of dictates how voluminous the incidents are when it comes to bombings. In the summer of 1969, here in the United States, we had on average, no less than 5 bombings a day. And that's a fact.
Really?
Police stations, recruiting stations, universities that had contracts with the Department of Defense, the side of government buildings, and just places like that.
Anti-war type of thing.
Yeah, they will.
That's kind of an oxymoron, though, isn't it? If like you're anti-war, but you're willing to blow stuff up. I mean,
So it was, and keeping in mind that the vast majority of them were property damage. It's not to say there weren't deaths associated with these bombings, but a lot of the terrorist groups, the Black Panthers, the Weathermen, the Armed Resistance Unit, the FALN, all of these terrorist groups took a lesson from the Baader-Meinhof group out in Germany. They didn't hesitate to kill people. And they got such bad rap from the German people that they literally, after a while, their whole operation just had to go underground. And they just couldn't do any of their bombings anymore because, they were just that unpopular. If you're blowing up a police precinct at NYPD in Harlem, and you're not killing anybody, well, it might make the Metro section of the New York Times, But 5 bombings a day on average, and I sometimes wonder whether or not, if it hadn't been for the fact that same summer that we planted a Old Glory on the moon, that probably saved the Republic. I know you guys are not as old as I am, but that summer around that time, especially in '68 after the assassinations of King and Kennedy, and there were a whole lot of people that just weren't sure whether or not the Republic was going to last out the year. The night after Dr. King was shot, my father was stationed up at Fort Meade, Maryland, which is right between Baltimore and Washington. And I remember stepping outside on the front porch, and I would look south, and the whole eastern seaboard was overcast. And all you could see was just orange reflecting off of the underside of the clouds in D.C. Because of all the fires, because the city was burning down. And then you would look north to Baltimore, and all you saw were just orange clouds because they were burning the city down. They were really very volatile times. A lot of people, like I said, were just not quite sure where we were heading as a society and as a nation. So, and then we went to the moon, and I think that really did a lot to, prevent anything from really getting out of hand.
Wow. Yep. So you were constantly learning, constantly having to keep up to date with all the stuff, all the precursors, and
well, that's the reason why most bomb techs will spend a lot of their time going back to school, and or doing their research.
Yeah.
Both ATF and FBI do a great job. Sometimes they like to keep things under their hat. They had, like for instance, with Nashville, and you had the bombing back in Christmas morning back in 2020. And it's not a secret, but what most people suspect that a guy named Anthony Warner, used when he was in his little, mobile home. Because right off the get-go, they heard gunshots, and then they heard another gunshot, and then boom. There's a product called tannerite.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And to the best of my knowledge, you can still buy it over.
A couple Border Patrol agent got in trouble because he was doing a reveal party, and they used the tannerite, and it caused the wildfires, I think in Arizona, or
Okay.
yeah. And they traced it back to, and he ended up having to pay back lots of money.
Yeah. But it's shock sensitive. You can buy big, barrels of this stuff. Every once in a while, It's like the guy here in the southeast who wanted to blow up an old lawnmower. So he puts this, ammonium nitrate and aluminum and nitromethane mixture together, and he, puts it on the and of course it's usually a Saturday afternoon when everybody's had lots of beers and so he's standing off. It's probably from here to the house next door, and he takes his, because it's initiated by shock. So and really that was the whole purpose behind tannerite, was you hit it as a target marker. So he shoots it, nothing happens. Gets a little bit closer, shoots it again, nothing happened. Gets a little bit closer. The guy's like 5 feet away, shoots it, boom, loses his leg. So, so people do silly things, and it's unfortunate, but maybe that's how we, I guess, clean out the shallow end of the pool, I guess.
Shallow under the.
I think the Border Patrol agent that used it for the gender reveal party, he's basically paying back all the damages for the rest of his life. It was like it was a stupid amount of money that they told him he has to pay back.
Oh, I bet.
All for using tannerite. It was like, drought, hasn't rained.
There's another reason why not to do these stupid reveal parties. I mean, just say it. Why have to blow something up to make it pink or blue? And we had 3 kids. We did not have any kind of reveal party.
Wow, I don't think back then it wasn't really a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it wasn't.
No, it was just like, you either tell people or you don't.
I just wanted a healthy baby.
Exactly. Exactly. Is it a special type of person that can qualify for being in the bomb?
No, I don't know. There's one of the things when I first went out for it, one of the first things that they did is that they put me in the bomb suit and then made me walk around and pick up things and roll around and then, stand up. And you would do that for about half an hour. That would typically wash out about half the candidates.
Really?
Because you're very enclosed. It's heavy as all get out. It's warm, and there's a lot of people, one of the candidates I knew was just said no, and just basically said, this is not my cup of tea. Sorry. That was it.
Can't be stressed out before going to the...
I assume you have to have some nerves of steel a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never considered myself having nerves of steel. I think it was just one of those things. Maybe my personality is that I have one of those kind of mentalities where the gravity of a situation doesn't really hit me until after the fact. And so that allows me probably to go up to a device. We had our commander of the bomb squad was not big on us wearing bomb suits. I mean, we could average 3 calls a day.
Really?
And again, the vast majority of the stuff was just, but he didn't want to alarm, Washingtonians as or the leadership of the nation. So we would have to go up there in our business suits with our little X-ray machines, unless we knew that there was a good chance that was it. And that a lot of it had to do with intel. If somebody had called in and said, okay, all right, the fact of the matter is I placed this bomb here. Here it is. It's in this brown suitcase, and it's next to this statue. And, in which case you my suit and tie.
What's the reasoning behind that? Why would someone go through the effort to do that, and then to call in and say, there's a bomb next to the Washington Monument in a brown suitcase? What
recognition? It's just like an influencer now.
Is their intention really to detonate that bomb, or is it to have it not detonate and just have some kind of...
It's like the chap out in, blew himself up in that home out in Nashville, or at that trailer home, that RV, and to this day nobody knows why he did it. He was playing all that music before he did it, which was, or forget the music that he was playing, very popular Christmas songs. But he took it to his grave. It's like during the Amerithrax investigation, you had Dr. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember his name now, but he was the prime suspect.
Committed suicide.
Yeah, and he committed suicide. Took it to his grave.
Yeah, no, they still to this day, it's still an open case because they never could.
Well, you had 3 of the top scientists in that investigation.
Yeah.
That had their doubts. For one thing, the stuff that was released, both at the Brentwood post office, the one up in Jersey, on Capitol Hill, all of this stuff was real sticky. I mean, it was they got it down to 1 to 5 microns, but in order to weaponize anthrax, is that you have to take the static cling out of it, and they didn't do that. They couldn't do that, and so subsequently it just adhered. As soon as you threw it up in the air, it just kind of gravitated to all the surfaces, which made the cleanup much more easier than this, as opposed to this stuff kind of floating around for.
And once it gets in the ventilation system, that whole building is done.
Yeah, but they never found. They didn't find it in his lab. They didn't find it in his office. They didn't find it in his home. They didn't find it in his car, and it should have been there. And
yeah, because he was a scientist at Fort Detrick.
Yep.
Huh.
And, and he was a troubled man. It kind of goes without saying. He did. He wasn't. But he, like I said, they don't know what. With that said, there was one of the hijackers that was down in Fort Lauderdale when they were staging from there before they moved up to the Valencia hotel on Route 1 up in Laurel, Maryland. And he presented at an emergency room. I'm pretty sure it was Fort Lauderdale. And the doctor there thought it was cutaneous anthrax. All right. So,
It's scary.
Yeah.
Just don't want. So the principles of safety. I remember after 9/11, and people were talking about see something, say something, and especially when you're at the airport, things like that. When you're talking to people as a bomb tech, civilians, or you have kids coming through class, what do you tell them? Well, you're out walking around, you see something that looks suspicious. What do you do?
well, number one, you don't touch it. We're always telling them, say, don't be here, or just don't touch it. Get away from it. Try to get as many people to get out of that area. We advocate about the length of a football field. 300 feet is really the way to
Do you guys teach SIN? SIN, secure, isolate, notify.
Yep. And then once you do that, one of the things it used to drive me crazy as a bomb tech. We get on the scene from a call where somebody would call in something, and invariably you would have, police officers. The device would be over there, and they're hiding behind the building except for their head as they're staring at. And we're like, if you can see the bomb can see you. But yeah. Yes, and really that's the thing to do, is to just isolate it as best you can. If you find it inside of a building, what we advocate is certainly get everybody out of the building. But with that said, one of the organizations that I work for now, and I say volunteer, is called the Election Commission. and they represent all of the election officials across the nation. They're receiving so many threats these days, especially bomb threats, that my job is to go in there and to really kind of educate all of the leaders of the Committee for the Safety and Secure Elections and say, okay, this is what you have to do in order to prevent, somebody from getting hurt. But the problem is, as you know, simply because you get a bomb threat doesn't mean that you evacuate. I mean, if they evacuated every time somebody called in a bomb threat, you would effectively close down the government. So we have to kind of look at it and say, okay, where is this thing? Why is it placed where it's placed? Is there any additional intel? It used to drive me crazy at FLETC cafeteria. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if they still do it. But all the students would come in and they would take their backpacks and they would put them on the side of, this little area leading into the...
They're not allowed to do that anymore.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Because it was like, you look at thousands of these backpacks that have all just piled up and you think, how easy would it be for somebody to jump the fence, dress up in some kind of blue shirt, and then, plant something, perfect target. So we educate our young charges. Okay. Just because you get a bomb threat, you don't necessarily have to evacuate. Matter of fact, what we try to do is we get the manager, especially if it's a private place, a restaurant. For instance, if they get a bomb threat, I can't tell people to get out of there. That's the manager's call. And so all we can do is just encourage him, listen, oftentimes enough in most government buildings, if we get a bomb threat, we actually try to get the staff to look around to see if there's anything unusual. They know what belongs and what doesn't. And what better people to determine if there's something over there in the corner that shouldn't be there, At which case, then, now you can get the hell out of Dodge and call the bomb squad and get them to come in and x-ray it. So
when you were at FLETC, how much fun did you have out there at the ATF field?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, those were some of the best times, especially on a beautiful day.
Yeah.
We would do 21 shots. We would start off with just the line of black powder and smokeless powder just to kind of give the students appreciation, especially when the black powder went off, because you would have this just voluminous white smoke. And that was a good education, really to convey to the students that if you ever get on the scene and you get a lot of people that said, geez, all this billowing white smoke and PU, it smelled like rotten eggs. Black powder.
Yep.
All right. And then we would work our way up to RDX, C4, about a pound and a quarter. And then, of course, we did the world famous tire shot.
Yeah,
those shots, fill it up with gasoline, put a gas booster, which is a kind of a very powerful combination of TNT and maybe PETN. And then the whole idea was to just see how far you could launch these tires into the blue yonder. And, every once in a while, the wind would pick one up and it would end up in the woods. That one, then you'd have to call up the Glenn County Fire Department and say, hey, can you come over here and put out this fire for you?
Oh, I guess. That's always, those are always good times.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. It was great. Nothing quite like going out there and blowing things up to get your
It really it opens your eyes, especially like when they start off with like the little letter, and then they move on, and they said, oh, it was just this little much, and sending tires up in the air,
and we have a limit of 1.5 TNT. Which means the actual detonation velocity can't exceed what you normally would get from a pound and a half TNT. But we actually cheat a lot on that. But it was like I mean, C4, a pound and a quarter isn't a pound and a half of TNT equivalent.
That's a lot.
It is. Yeah, it's a hell of a punch.
It goes boom.
Out here, sometimes we hear booms over here because we're not that far from
Well, I always like when like you're on Facebook and people that are like new to here, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of it has to do with the atmospherics. If you get a really dry day outside and there's no overcast, and you won't hear it nearly as well if you have an overcast and there's a lot of humidity in the air, because the sound and so it's funny, on a really good day you can hear this boom as it's ricocheting on the ground, up to the cloud, down on the ground again, and it'll go on, for about anywhere. I think the most I ever heard was about 7 little echoes coming back from that.
That's wild. I've never, ever been around any of that. I mean, the biggest thing, if we got our hands on some dry ice, put a little water in a 2-liter bottle, throw the dry ice in there, shake it up, throw it out in the middle of the street, and it'd go. I made it good. Yeah. When I was at Camp Prince Seafood, they use dry ice for packaging, samples, things like that, but they have the dry ice maker. There's a product they make over there that is for Panda Express, the honey walnut shrimp. It's a tempura batter, so it's very temperature sensitive. If the temperature gets too high, they have to dump everything out and redo it. So you have to really keep an eye. A gentleman that worked on the floor had a great initiative. He thought it'd be a great idea to take this pipe shaped like a U, and he filled it full of dry ice. And he's got to put it around. That would kind of help keep the temperature down. But he sealed it. And it punched a hole in his chest.
Really?
14 seconds it took.
Yeah.
And it's aluminum. There's aluminum pipe. Pretty thick. And the thing is, they got cameras everywhere because people slip and fall and say they hurt themselves. So we saw, because I was in the management meetings, production meetings every day, 8 o'clock. And first thing is we go over some of these things. We watched that video. And the guy survived, thankfully.
Yeah.
But, oh my God. But there's a little bit of science. You could have just drilled a couple holes in there to let the gas out. You would have had a great idea. But he almost killed himself over it. So people just don't know science. And growing up, I never built a bomb or had any idea to build it. I wouldn't even know where to start. Honestly, I'm not electrically inclined. I did not do well in chemistry. But to see, when we read about these things and what they do, part of it is like you're disgusted because this person's so smart and this is what they choose to do. But then it's like, wow, that's something that it's incredible that they thought of something like that. Do some people think this is kind of a little bit of an art form for them?
I don't know if it's an art form. I think it's just, for the kids, it's just mischief. It's, what are they called? What's that old saying about idle hands?
Idle hands do devil's work or something like that.
And so, this is why, unfortunately, I think, a lot of kids, that's why they drive fast. So that's why they take chances, because I suspect it's because, like all of us when we were younger, we were immortal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so
we're part of the Gen X. And so it's like we survived. We're the ones that survived. I mean, there was no bike helmets. There was no elbow pads or knee pads. We would have like kids that
Lawn darts.
Yeah. We'd have the younger kids stand at the corner being the lookouts for the cars as we're like laying on our skateboards on our bellies and going head first down this hill and through an intersection. And when we get the little kids, it's okay, there's no cars. And we just, okay, go. And, the street hockey and this and that. And, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? Yeah, we did a lot of we did a lot of stuff that was just because you do, yeah, you feel like that. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, we have things are fireworks and stuff like that, but I don't think any of my friends or me had that level of mischievousness to rig something up to go boom in a major way. I mean, throwing some fireworks, and we would cut off the ends of those yellow wiffle ball bats. We'd cut off the tops, and we'd light a bottle rocket, put it in there, and we'd aim it at each other. I mean, that's the stuff that we did.
Yeah.
Oh, but
They're only one step away from being a mad bomber.
Yeah.
You know? So it...
You never lit a sparkler in someone's butt?
now, what is that? That's just phosphorus, right? Those sparklers?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it was it's phosphorus. Was it white phosphorus and aluminum? God, I'm trying to remember what else. And that's the thing. It's matter of fact, one of the thing that the bikers came up with was using potassium chlorate and mixing it with red phosphorus. But they would put it in a little aluminum bowl. But the problem is that as soon as the red phosphorus would come in contact with the not the aluminum, but the red phosphorus and the potassium chloride, then you would get an explosion. It's kind of like the device that that I rendered safe that was sent on the hill. And so what they would do is, though, they would put rubbing alcohol at the base of this a little aluminum foil, and then they would twist the top of it, and they would leave them out. And so the rubbing alcohol would evaporate, and then somebody would come along and pick it up, and boom. Probably not enough to take off your fingers, but it certainly would probably take off the skin on your fingers. So, but they were setting them out for the drug enforcement boys when they would come in at the back of the bikers club to close down the meth labs, and they would set these things out. Oh, are these things? I think the only injury that I'm aware of, that it was a canine dog that touched one and kind of got his muzzle a little banged up, but that's him. So there.
What about thermite? I've heard about thermite. Is that something that has been around for a while? Is it new? Is it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's you have the certainly that the white phosphorus is certainly very
But that's not an explosive thing. That's like
it isn't. But once you release it into air, and from its encapsulated sort, you would get this exothermic reaction where it was, holy mackerel, and it would just get so hot it would just go through anything. And you can make some of those. Thermal bombs, of course, are very popular, and those are the kind that it's like an air fuel mixture. One of the more tragic uses of that, the IRA over in Belfast. It was a popular pub that British soldiers went to, and so what they did is they took this device and they put it in the window that faced right into the pub, and then the device went off, but it also pushed all of the gasoline and the fumes into the pub, and the actual explosive device then, of course, set that on fire and caused this massive explosion, or this, So, and
yeah, there's a million ways to create something to go boom.
Yeah.
How do you stay on top of all that?
Sometimes you have to wait for the bad guys to do it, or you just go back to a lot of school. You try to, and Mike will tell you, we spent a lot of time as instructors trying to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And it,
when I was with CBP, and even at the port, you're always constantly, when I'm standing there on primary and there's no cars, there's nobody there, you're constantly thinking of, or what if scenarios, like, what if this, what if that, and you always have to think about what the next card that shows up. What if it's this, or what if it's that? And even now with the, agricultural threats, you always have to stay on top of, emerging pests, or, a lot of people don't realize this with agriculture, but it is the number one economy in the United States. Like, a lot of people don't realize that it generates $1 trillion each year. So that is, if you're a bad guy and you wanted to cripple the economy, you would target agriculture. You know what I mean? So,
Well, we when it comes to biological weapons, we tend to get hung up on somebody using a virus or a bacterium that targets humans, and certainly the People's Republic of China are big believers. You don't go after the people; you go after the cows. You go after the corn. You go after the wheat, and there are lots of bad,
actors.
fungi that are out.
Oh yeah,
Wipes out
just recently in Detroit, they caught an Asian national that was trying to bring in a fungi that, if it was introduced, would have devastated 80% of certain crops. And it doesn't take it all. It's just nothing.
Let's not forget, during World War I, before our entry, we had a chap that came in, rented a basement, a home in Washington, D.C., right there on, I think it was like 16th and Livingston Street Northwest. And in his basement, he put together a host of biological weapons, foot and mouth disease, glanders. It was just a whole bunch. And then what they did, because the Brits and the French were reliant on the United States for all of their big workhorses. I mean, it's nice that they had lorries. That's not what got you through the mud. It was the horses. And they got all of their horses from the United States. So the Germans sent the agents over, and what they did is they made the biological weapons, again, stateside. And then they went up to Baltimore and New York Harbor, and then they spiked apples, and they threw them over the fence, and to clear as many of the horses as they could.
Yeah, glanders.
Yep.
Horses, cattle, reindeer.
Yep.
World War I and World War II.
Most people.
And the Russians against the Afghans.
You mean World War XI?
Yeah, yeah. And then you had the, trying to remember, it was D-Day. And a lot of people don't know that if D-Day failed on the beaches of Normandy, they had 200 British Lancaster bombers that had not bombs, but they had salt licks. And they were all filled with, or I should say contaminated with, foot and mouth disease and other diseases like that. And they were going to drop them all over Germany, to kill all of the,
Well, they were, as mechanized as they were, they relied on horse a lot for movement.
Yeah.
The glanders affected horses. Foot and mouth disease affects any hooved animal, including swine and swine. Excuse me. So foot and mouth, your cows, your sheep, your goats, your deer, all your swine. So foot and mouth is nasty animal disease. Really nasty.
If you contaminated one cow in the panhandle of Texas with foot and mouth disease, and if you haven't done anything within the next 24 hours to isolate that cow, it will spread to every other cow within, 200 miles?
If it becomes aerosol,
Contagious it is.
Yes, not us.
if it becomes aerosol, it can travel 170 miles aerosol in an aerosol form.
Yeah.
So, and don't forget, then there's classical swine fever, and there's African swine fever. Yeah. All nasty, 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 nasty things.
So if you're going to bring down a society, it's interesting. Every once in a while, over in Taiwan, they have these outbreaks. And there's always been speculation that the Chinese have been, I guess, using Taiwan as a test ground. which, you know, of course, opens up the whole subject about COVID and its origins, and, you know, but the problem is uh, Mother Nature tends to spring these things on us. And and until such time as when the investigation reveals otherwise, in all likelihood, it's just that. It's just some virus out in the middle of nowhere.
Like anthrax is a naturally occurring bacteria.
Yeah, you find it in the dirt.
Yeah, yep, sure
Yeah.
can.
You could find it on, if you go to Africa and you bought an African skin drum, it could be filled with anthrax spores.
I've always said, you know, this earth, when she's done with us, she's going to shake us up like a dog with fleas. You know, just boom. When she's done with the humans, psh, all right,
Yeah.
we'll see ya.
Yeah.
Well, Hugh, this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, this has been great.
Well, thank you for having me.
No,
on
thank
board.
you.
It's
It is educational and entertaining and something scary, but it's an interesting insight that people don't know about. And, you know, a lot of people kind of get the information from the TV because that's always a sensational episode, is when there's a bomb on the scene and, you know, it's cut the blue wire. No, cut the green wire. What wire are we cut? And it's like 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
But it's good, you know, to hear that that's not how it really is. And I think you kind of probably set some people's minds at ease, because a lot of these threats are just threats.
Yeah.
Which is good to hear. Unfortunately, people have to, for some reason, they have to make these things a threat. But since they're inert, or there's nothing there when at all to hurt anybody, but it's just something that I think a lot of people don't know too much about, because they don't see it that often. And it's good that we're staying up on the training the new people. And what fascinates me is it's like all kind of technology, it's always evolving. Yeah. And I think out of any of the law enforcement disciplines, like that, the bomb unit is probably the one that has to be the most educated and most trained, because those things change a lot, because the technology is just there, and these people who are unfortunately very smart, but they're doing things the wrong way, are using this technology to make it more and more difficult for you.
But in kind, keep in mind that we use technology to our advantage too. Robots. The first robot I ever worked with was this. It looked like a small tank, and it was probably weighed just as heavy. And now they're so lightweight and so strong enough where they can still drag somebody out of a environment if they have to, unlike the old days. So drones, talk about technology. 15 years ago, all right, when we were over at Fletsy, and they were really sort of toying with the idea that drones might in fact be used to deliver explosives, IEDs, to their targets. And there were a lot of us that poo-pooed the idea, me included. I was like, oh, no, they'll never do that. No.
It's happening.
It's happening. And that's, let's face it, that's, the Ukraine's pretty much pioneered that whole thing, and they're keeping back the one of the most powerful armies on the planet.
It's impressive.
So, yep.
Thanks again for coming over, hanging out,
Yeah.
and educating us.
Well, it was my pleasure.
So this has been You Know Me, a Golden Owls podcast. I'm The Beard,
I'm Buda.
and we had
Hugh Breslin.
Awesome. Thank you, man.